everybody is kind of becoming a developer because English is kind of the new programming language. We needed to manage content on multiple platforms, not only websites, but also mobile applications. Even the way to create websites was already completely changing.
Pierre Burgy is the co-founder and chief executive officer of Strapi, one of the most advanced open source headless content management frameworks that enables developers to build APIs quickly and securely.
You're quite an unconventional personality of building from the scratch a fantastic new technology platform.
Headless means that there is no front end in the CMS. Let me explain. Open source is extremely important for a CMS because companies want to host their CMS on different platforms. The beauty of open source software is that it's fully customizable, especially as Strapi can be installed locally on developers' computers. We truly believe that AI is going to empower both developers and marketers.
Hello and welcome to the Dinis Guarda YouTube podcast show, powered by citiesabc.com, businessabc.net, and wisdomia.ai. Here we profile global thinkers and especially the people transforming our society, our world, with the best of business and technology, and as well the people that have a strong capacity to persist and do the best to have a statement, but as well a meaningful action in the world we live. Let me take a moment to share something game-changing I've recently come across. Merlin AI is a revolutionary tool that brings value for money and real productivity. Think of this, ChatGPT Plus individually costs around $21 to $22 a month. Claude is another $25 USD with VAT, and Gemini is the same. That's nearly $60 a month just for 3 tools, and most people don't even maximize their usage. With Merlin AI, you get access to all the leading AI models, ChatGPT 4, Claude 3.5, Gemini, Grok, DeepSeek, and more, for just $5 a month. The standard Merlin subscription is $228 a year. But if you use the promo code on screen, it drops to just $60 a year. That's 75% off. Literally $5 a month for the complete AI stack. No gimmicks, no piracy. 100% legit. Merlin AI leverages API costs smartly to offer a single unified platform, giving professionals, students, researchers, creators, everyone the power of all major models at one low price. And there's something else that really stood out for me, projects. This is where Merlin becomes more than a tool, it becomes your co-pilot. You upload documents, assign tasks, like generating YouTube scripts, analyzing reports, or building content workflows, and Merlin sets up a smart workspace based on your context. It pulls references, suggests ideas, and even structures your output. It's like having a research assistant, strategist, and writer built into one dashboard. For anyone who uses AI regularly for business, academic research, or creative content, this is a no-brainer. You're saving over $180 per year and gaining access to more tools with better integration and far less switching between tabs or platforms. I've personally made it part of my workflow, and I believe platforms like Merlin AI represent the next evolution of how we interact with artificial intelligence. Unified, accessible, and built for creators and thinkers. I'll leave the link and the discount code below. If you're serious about scaling your productivity with AI, Merlin AI is one to explore right now. Today I'm quite excited to bring one of the personalities who is revolutionizing the content industry with his cutting-edge technology-enabled CMS, Strapi. I welcome to our series Pierre Burgy, the co-founder and chief executive officer of Strapi, one of the most advanced open-source headless content management frameworks that enables developers to build APIs quickly and securely. Strapi has built a global community of over 72,000 active developers and 66,000 stars on GitHub, and is trusted by global leaders including IBM, Walmart, NASA, Toyota, and Societe Generale. In 2020, Strapi announced a $4 million seed round led by Accel and Stride.vc. With the participation of notable angel investors and open source experts such as Solomon Hykes, Guillermo Rauch, and Eli Collins. Previously, Pierre was a developer at Checkout.com and Oui Will. Pierre holds a master's degree in web design, web development, and web marketing from HETIC, a prominent digital technology school in France. He also holds a BBA in marketing, sales, and corporate finance from EGC Business School.
Pierre Burgy. So it's a pleasure to have you here. I've been looking forward for this moment, and you're quite an unconventional personality of building from the scratch a fantastic new technology platform. But as well, I would like to go to the basics. So if you would ask your 12 years old, some years before, where you are now in Silicon Valley, and as well from Paris to Silicon Valley and France, how would you see that 12 years old, and what was the thing that influenced it to become who you are now?
Wow, that's a good question. First of all, thank you for having me today. Yeah, I think I would be proud that we built such a successful open source project. I grew up in France, in the east of France, in a 600 inhabitants village, and I think I spent most of my childhood. When I was not at school, I was doing mountain biking and windsurfing. That's all two important passions of mine. And it's only later that I really became passionate about IT. So when I was 12, I was suddenly interested in technologies, but it's only later that I really started becoming passionate about coding. And it's been quite a journey from this small village to studying in Paris, meeting my co-founders, starting working as a freelance developers, building this small web agency while being students, and feeling the need for a way more traditional, modern CMS, and ended up creating our own solution and making it open source in 2015.
So during this process of course, like you said, from a small village of France to the world, first of all, I would like to touch. So you had engineer education, a bit of your background, and how did you become into open source? And you mentioned the agency before we even go to Strapi.
So I started my studies in a business school. When I was 19, I was working part-time as a real estate agent, selling houses and apartments. That's really when I realized that I wanted to build my own company. So I decided to continue my studies in IT so I could build my own websites, my own products. And that's what I did. So that's when I moved to Paris in 2013. And I really became passionate about building with JavaScript, having the ability to build my own websites. I did an internship at checkout.com when I was a student. So that was in 2014. And after this, I was building a lot of websites for clients with my two co-founders, Aurélien and Jim, who are two friends from the university where we studied in Paris. And we're so frustrated by traditional content management systems that we decided to build our own. We needed to manage content on multiple platforms, not only websites, but also mobile applications. And even the way to create websites was already completely changing. Instead of using traditional systems like PHP, we wanted to use modern front-end frameworks such as Angular back in the days, and then React and Vue.js, which are frameworks that really help developers building faster websites. But all of these technologies are designed to be connected to an API to pull the content. And that's why we needed a CMS that was much more modern. It was based on JavaScript, that was API first, and that's how we ended up building it for us. And we started using it for clients, and we realized that a ton of developers were having similar needs. So we decided to make the project open source, to give back to the community, and to really have a huge impact, because we already wanted to build the most popular CMS.
No, amazing. So let's go to Strapi. So from this creation, like you said, of looking and building an open source CMS, which is a big task, because of course there's hundreds of CMSs, and some of them with there's 1.1 billion websites in the world. I always like to keep the numbers more or less. And of course, 40% is WordPress, but there's a lot of major global CMS platforms, from the big players of tech Silicon Valley to open source. So first of all, explain to our audience what is Strapi. And secondly, why you build it, how it works, your ecosystem.
Yeah, so Strapi is a content management system. So the content management system is a tool to manage content, typically on the website. So if you build a website, you need to update the content. You might want to add a new blog post, you might want to edit the home page, and so on and so on. And that's what you can do with a CMS. So this is what we do, and we do it for modern websites. And Strapi is open source. It's fully customizable, and there is a very large community around it. And that community is made of individual contributors all over the world, as well as solution partners, typically digital agencies that use Strapi, that recommend Strapi, and that also build around Strapi by developing plugins, for example, that are extensions of the plugins. There is more than 200 plugins on the Strapi Marketplace, and that really makes Strapi so much more than a CMS. It really is an ecosystem.
And tell us about the ecosystem. So first of all, if you could, I think one of the things I like to do in this series is demystify what it takes to build something. And I know that it's not easy. I think one of the challenges in technology is how you create your own ecosystem, and especially how we keep a consistency around this ecosystem and you keep innovation. In the past, I actually built a CMS myself, actually, and I know how complex it is because you need to keep the pace of innovation, you need to keep the developers coming on, and as well keeping all the innovation that comes on this. So a bit of that journey from starting, and you mentioned that you start with a lot of from looking into the open source community, but I think a bit of this story. I don't know if you want to share a bit of details how it started, when it was the moment, okay, I'll create a CMS and I'll bring in an audience, I'll build developers, and people can build on top of it. And as well, what is the uniqueness of Strapi in terms of if we would compare with other open source or other CMSs?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, congrats on building your own CMS. You've seen that on paper, it's pretty easy. You easily build the admin panel. You can manage some content, but once you want to manage content in different languages, once you want to limit access in the CMS, once you want to add the review workflows, releases, all these kind of things, a CMS can become a very complex piece of software. And that's why we've been working on it for 10 years now. So yeah, it's a lot of work. So we were using all of these traditional CMSs, but we needed something that was more modern, and that's really why we decided to build our own piece of software. And when it comes to the ecosystem, we decided to build Strapi as an open source tool since day one, because we wanted to give back to the open source community, because as developers, we're using open source tools all day long. We're also convinced that open source is extremely important for a CMS, because companies want to host their CMS on different platforms. They do not necessarily want to rely on a proprietary solution that they cannot migrate away from, but they want to be able to host a CMS on their own cloud, for example. It can be GCP, AWS, whatever. That's something that they absolutely need to do for data privacy reasons. And this does not represent the CMS to be easy to use, because CMS can also offer its own cloud platform, which is what we do with Strapi Cloud. And so we were really convinced about open source for that reason, but also because as developers, we're absolutely convinced that any company is building different projects and has a specific set of requirements. It can be about the features in the CMS, but it can also be about the integrations. Think about an integration with HubSpot or Salesforce or Shopify or Cloudinary. All of these integrations are super important in the CMS. And every company has its own set of tools that they already use. And maybe these tools have been around for years, but they cannot read away of these tools. And they should probably not, because this would be costly and they would not focus on the right things. Yet they need to integrate with these tools. So the beauty of open source software is that it's fully customizable, especially as Strapi can be installed locally on developers' computers, and then hosted on Strapi Cloud or any other cloud provider. So that's what we've done, and it works really well. And all of our big enterprise customers really proved that need for having something that's open source. And to talk a bit more about the ecosystem and the community, I really like to consider that there are kind of different circles, because sometimes people ask me, how big is the community? Well, it's basically every Strapi user. And it all starts with the core contributors. So Strapi is open source. The repository is public on GitHub. It reached 66,000 stars on GitHub, making Strapi one of the 100 most starred repositories on GitHub, which is huge. And we get a lot of contribution on that specific repository. And so there's our core contribution. So that's really the core of the ecosystem. But the ecosystem is so much more than the core contributors. It's also all of the people, no matter if they're individuals, solution partners, technology partners, who create the integrations that gravitate around Strapi. And that's why Strapi Markets, which is the Strapi Marketplace, is super important. That's where, as a user, you can get a ton of value from what other developers have built. Because if you need an integration with Shopify, for example, you will find it on the marketplace. And so you will save a ton of time when building your own project. And that's really the power of building an ecosystem. And it's also about all of the solution partners, digital agencies, recommending Strapi to their end clients. And we really empower them to do so. We do not compete with them because we have absolutely no intention in becoming a service company, which is what we've been in the extremely early days when we had to make revenue when being students. We could not make revenue out of the product yet. But we also discovered that we're spending 90% of our time building custom stuff for clients, although we want to be a product company and offer the absolute best CMS. And so that's why the ecosystem is so important, and that there are these different circles that really gravitate around Strapi.
And that is a key element, the community. And I would say that at the moment, the most important thing is the ecosystem, the communities. And I think it's quite difficult because, like you said, when you talk about open source, there's so much complexities because you have to keep building. If you are in a closed environment, you have the advantages of everything in a package. But if you're not, it's quite tricky. So first of all, I would like for you to explain for people listening to us. So there's different numbers that I would like for you to see if you can public, but I think I found numbers that you have around from at least there's a source that you have around 53,000 websites using Strapi. And there's another source that says a bit less, but and 26,000 currently sites. That's one of the numbers. But as well, you have very big organizations like IBM and NASA that some of the developers use Strapi. So give us a bit of your ecosystem numbers, and as well, I think describe what is an open source headless CMS, because I think I always like, especially for people listening to us, to understand these things. I think especially in universities, unless you're studying software developing, most of the universities don't teach any of this, and people using the technology without knowing. And I'm sure that people listening to me, I would say if I ask 99% of people don't know what is an headless CMS. So I would like for you to explain that and then talk about your ecosystem and you're successful.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, the numbers that you've shared are almost they're actually much higher already. So the Strapi ecosystem keeps growing. So that's a very good signal. So headless means that there is no front end in the CMS. Let me explain. In a traditional CMS, you really have two components. You have the backend, which is the admin panel to manage the content. This is typically where you're going to create blog posts, edit blog posts, change the home page, and so on and so on. There is also the front end, which is the visible part of the website. So if you go on adidas.com, for example, what you will see is the front end. Historically, the front end was generated by the CMS. But now, because developers want to use much more modern technologies for very good reasons, typically for performance, they want to use frameworks which are independent from the CMS. And so in the traditional CMS, you have the backend, which is the admin panel, and the front end. In a headless CMS, you have the backend, and instead of the front end, you have an API. And this API makes the contents available to any platform, no matter if it's a mobile application or a front end made with a modern front end framework.
Fantastic, and you put it very sharp. Thank you. So coming back to your community, I think some of the highlights of the community, I mentioned IBM and NASA, but a bit of some of the highlights of the community and what I would say for people listening to you, what makes you guys special.
Yeah, so what really makes Strapi special is that it's open source, which, as mentioned before, means that you can host Strapi on your own cloud provider and that you can customize Strapi for code. So you can integrate it with your existing tools, for example. There's also a very large community of users and partners all over the world. So if you need to build a project, you will find Strapi developers, you will find Strapi partners, and this will save a ton of time when building your own project.
Fantastic. So coming back into some of the different things. One of the things that I like in Strapi, and of course, for people listening to us, my organization uses Strapi, so I'm involved. One of the things is that you have a lot of support in terms of open APIs, and you support both REST and GraphQL API. So API is, just for people listening to us, stands for Application Programming Interfaces. So how do you see the vision of the future of API first content architecture, especially in the era of composable and modular digital experience as AI becomes more and more important?
Yes. So when it comes to composability, which is this idea of connecting tools together, having a CMS that is headless is great because it's API first. So you can connect it to any tool, no matter if it's your CRM or your e-commerce CMS, for example. So that's a very important item. But what's changing these days is AI. It's changing the way we code. It's changing the way we do marketing. And the CMS is really at the intersection of developers and marketers. We truly believe that AI is going to empower both developers and marketers. It might be scary because things are moving really fast, but we, as a CMS, are here to empower both developers and marketers, and even digital agencies, to really serve this wave, this gigantic opportunity that AI is. This is why at StrapiConf, which was in May 2025, we released Strapi AI. Strapi AI is a suite of functionalities that really brings AI into the CMS. The first step that we announced is the AI content type builder. So now in Strapi, you can just chat with Strapi and say, hey, I'm building an e-commerce website. Please create the content structure for me. And it will automatically suggest a content structure for your specific project. So if you're building a blog, for example, it will create a title. It could also create a content field. It will create an image field, maybe, everything you need. If you have built a project with React, for example, or any other front-end framework, you can just drag and drop that project in Strapi, and Strapi will scan all of the components. And if it detects the component button, if it detects a button component, if it detects a menu component, and all of this, it will create the content structure that is ideal for your front-end project. And that saves a lot of time to developers in the process. The other AI features that we're working on at the moment are translation. So you can translate the content from one language to another in one click. And other things like generating media like videos and assets and images from within the CMS. These are all things that we are actively working on and that we will roll out over the coming months. And I think there is something even bigger, which is how do you go from one prompt, like build a blog post or build an entire website with desk colors and so on and so on. And I think that's really where the future is the agentic CMS, if I can say, where you can really prompt your CMS and build entire websites within seconds. And I think we'll see a lot of improvements in the future in that area.
Well, thank you. And that's quite impressive how you are integrating the kind of a prompt engineering within the CMS itself. So as a platform that is open source and the community that is large, I would like to highlight some numbers and then highlight my question. So open source, we're talking about in the world, there's around, according to GitHub reports, there's 100 million developers specifically listed in GitHub. And we saw a 26 increase in global developer accounts in a year. So we're going to continue having more, although there's a lot of myths around AI taking the jobs. So furthermore, 90% of companies use open source and a significant portion have open source program offices. So as a CMS that is open source, you have as well a balance between the open source community needs and the demands of enterprise grade users. How do you push this balance, especially for your corporate and enterprise clients and partners?
Yeah. So first of all, regarding the number of developers, I think everybody is kind of becoming a developer because English is kind of the new programming language. Even if, of course, if you want to build advanced projects, you really need to be an expert in a programming language. So yes, we've built the most popular open source headless CMS, and we focused on developers. We focused on the community. We focused on building a tool that's completely free. With this being said, many large companies use Strapi in production, and we're here to support them. This is why, end of 2020, we released the Strapi Enterprise Edition. The Strapi Enterprise Edition is an extension of the open source project. It comes with additional features around collaboration and complaints. Typically, these features include single sign-on, audit logs, review workflows, content history, and of course, we offer support. This means Strapi is fantastic for small projects, but also for very large use cases. Typically, Adidas.com runs on Strapi. So Strapi is enterprise ready. And as a company, we are here to empower all of these enterprises. Beginning of 2023, we also released Strapi Cloud, which is a hosting platform for Strapi projects, which means not only you can host Strapi on your own cloud, but we also offer a platform to facilitate deployments and to manage everything for you, from deployments to scaling the infrastructure. This has been really successful. It's for mid-market, smaller companies, but we also have very big logos, such as Dior or Louis Vuitton on Strapi Cloud. And this has been growing really, really well, and it's been greatly appreciated by the community. From an internal point of view, we've switched from building a community of individual developers to focusing on these very large enterprises when we release the Enterprise Edition. And this has been great to really empower the company, but we also wanted to go back to our roots, which are developers. And that's why Strapi Cloud is also very much aligned with the overall Strapi community, because one of the open source projects made, one of the projects made with the Strapi in this open source community are supposed to be in production one day. And that's why Strapi Cloud is a really good fit, because kudos to 100% of the open source project, rather than the Enterprise Edition is just for a small fraction of the Strapi users.
Well, it's impressive, and we'll put the notes on that as we get the interview pushed. But it's kind of a impressive assets that the community can build, and especially the bridge between the general ecosystem of enterprise versus community. So you mentioned the importance of the community. So the numbers, you can correct me, is around 72,000 active developers on your community, and 66,000 plus GitHub stars. So Strapi built a fantastic, truly global community. Tell us about this community and the strategy for nurturing this ecosystem, and for people that know so much, how they can engage and as well get part of this.
Yeah, so we did build quite a big community, and these people are based all over the world. So they often start using Strapi. They can join the community if they have questions. So they can ask questions on our public Discord. They can also publish issues or pull requests in the GitHub repository. And at the major in using Strapi, they can even develop plugins, for example. So that's really how the community has been built over the years.
Oh, that's very impressive. So in a lot of communities you have like you mentioned Discord. Do you have like events that you highlight and that you have like a big event where you put all the developers, like a kind of Apple style or Microsoft style events, or is something that you're thinking to do going forward?
Yeah, so before COVID, we organized a lot of meetups, a lot of Strapi meetups all over the world, but of course everything stopped because of COVID. And so we did some events online, and we started doing StrapiConf. StrapiConf, I think the first one was 2021. And StrapiConf is our annual event where we share a lot of big announcements. And it's a fantastic opportunity to prioritize all of these announcements ahead of the event and to welcome amazing customers and partners who highlight how they've been using Strapi. And the majority of the time, we also have community members who present how they contributed to Strapi through the core of Strapi or through building plugins. So this is an event we do every single year, but it was online until this year. So in May this year, in May 2025, we organized the first in-person StrapiConf. It was on the 13th of May, and it was a fantastic event because we finally met the Strapi community in person. Of course, we met some of our customers, some of the community members, some of our partners in person before that event, but it was just kind of one by one. But this time, we really met so many people from the community, and it was fantastic to celebrate all of the achievements from the past 10 years. And it was also a fantastic opportunity to make all of these big announcements like Strapi AI, the integration with Shopify, the new visual builder, all these kind of things in person. And I can tell you that it was so motivating for us as a team that we are signing for the next 10 years. And we're super excited about what's next.
Yeah, congratulations. And I think it's a fast growing community with a lot of areas. So one of the things with your CMS and your community is the focus on decentralization and open source ethics that play in the leadership and product roadmap. I want to provoke a bit here. So in terms of decentralization, you mentioned open integration with AI and e-commerce platforms like Shopify. Are you guys thinking as well to bring Web3 or kind of decentralized technologies to the platform? Because of course, it's interesting. I did recently an interview and we discussed for instance, in terms of the numbers is kind of a Web3 developers. We have around 30 million people, but I'm not talking open source community. I'm talking developers just Web2. And Web3, we have only 10,000. So it's quite interesting, the difference between the different parts of technology. And like you said, we are all becoming somehow a bit of developers with prompt engineering and things like that. But I would like to see how you see this kind of decentralization, Web3, AI, and even crypto and integration of this technology into your product roadmap. And because at the moment we have a kind of a multiple internet. We have the internet, UI UX AI, UI UX search, UI UX Web3, a lot of fragmentation. I would like to see your views around this and your roadmap.
Yeah. So we thought about storing the content that is managed in Strapi in the blockchain. That would be pretty impressive use case if you really want the content that you have on a website or on another application. So real single source of truth, like a blog post, it can easily be edited. How do you make sure that that version of a blog post was really what it was 2 years ago? And I think the blockchain is the best technology to really have this source of truth. With this being said, not everybody needs such capability. And what we've heard from the community that they want proper CMS features like visual editing, all these kind of things. And that's why we really decided to invest in the developer experience. With this being said, anybody can connect Strapi to a blockchain. because it's fully customizable, they can do what they need. And so that's feasible. Instead, we decided to really focus on AI because we truly think that it's changing the way people are building websites and creating content. So for us, it's a way that makes more sense.
I understand. So you touched the AI and you touched before the integration with e-commerce and with Shopify. So Strapi is known and of course is the biggest one open source CMS in the world. It has right now a lot of features like SEO friendly URLs, using slugs for clean descriptive links and to improve search visibility. And you are as well integrating a lot of e-commerce comprehensive solutions. Can you elaborate on this area? Because of course a huge part of the world is e-commerce and the uniqueness how we integrate, especially you mentioned Shopify and other things on that direction.
Yes. E-commerce is very important. It's roughly 25% of the projects made with Strapi. But Strapi is used more to manage the rest of the content, not the information about the products. There are some very good e-commerce CMSs that are excellent at managing products, like the name of the product, the images of the product, the variants of the product, the price, the description, but also managing shipping thanks to integrations and payments and orders, all these kind of things. And Strapi is great at managing the content, like blog posts, pages, menus, all these kind of things. And so we do not intend to be an e-commerce website, an e-commerce CMS, even if you can, of course, manage products and add payments, these kind of things. But instead, we would invest in integrations. And that's why at StrapiConf, we announced the Shopify integration. And so the idea is that imagine you are in Strapi and you are building a page. So you have your menu and you have maybe a slider of products on your own page. And what you can do in Strapi is that you can add a slide, and for the content of this slide, you can select a product which is in Shopify, for example, or any other e-commerce CMS or any other people. And this means you select this product by searching, like Adidas shoes, you select the pair of shoes that you want to display in that slider, and Strapi will store the Shopify product ID. This means that you have one single source of truth, which is Shopify in this example. So we never store the price, we never store the description. And this means that every time you're going to change your product in Shopify, this will automatically update your front-end project because the front-end will request the Strapi API, and the Strapi API will populate the information from Shopify, eventually with a caching system that's already supported with Redis, and it will send the product information to the front-end application. So that's extremely convenient for both developers because there is one single source of truth, no need to sync data, but it's also convenient for content editors because from within their CMS, which is Strapi, they can select products that are managed by themselves or another team in another tool.
One of the things that Strapi has the strength is, of course, to scale different capacities, and probably the most well-known is the capacity to have multi-channels, customer projects, and performance-critical applications. One of the things that a lot of people speak is the user interface and different parts. So what are you doing on this direction? And especially, how do you see the role of developer communities evolving in shaping the future of Strapi and the future of web and content infrastructures? Because at the end of the day, it's more how the developers bring this and how they bring it to the user-friendly or UI UX or some of the features that we build here.
Yeah, exactly. I think developers will keep playing a huge role in the future of Strapi by contributing to the core of Strapi, by building these plugins, but also by building pre-built websites that anybody can start with. Like you want a real estate website or something else, you should be able to pick a template from the existing community. And maybe this template would be AI generated. And so I think that's really where developers can play a significant role in the future.
So you're touching AI. So in terms of AI, at the moment, we are integrating a lot of elements of AI, from generative AI to especially agentic AI. And you touched that you are integrating agentic AI in the CMS. So how do you see, first of all, the integration with LLMs as well? And as well, one of the biggest challenges, how we integrate human content with machine content and the data, or you put the flow between this. It's something that you are working, because of course you can automate a lot of things and integrate a lot of different parts, but there's a lot of challenges in between the automation, between indexation for search engines and as well for AI platforms, because in the end of the day, some of these AI platforms are taking over, and even Google right now is displaying Gemini as the search result. So I would like to see that what's your view on this, and as well, how do you see the integration of AI within the system to scale and as well mitigate the risks that come with this?
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, I think it absolutely makes sense to have an AI native CMS that allows you to, by chatting with the CMS, create some content, change some content, translate some content. And that's why the first step is to absolutely add AI, not everywhere, but everywhere it makes sense within the CMS. Because these LLMs will consume more content, will need to produce more content, and the CMS is the place to create and manage that content. So that's the most important step. The other step is how can we go from scratch to a fully up and running website thanks to prompts? And how can we integrate better with all of these front-end frameworks, all of this coding tools like Cursor and all of the others? And that's really something we want to improve to facilitate that journey. So that's also another chapter that we're extremely interested in. And the third one is, probably more about consumption. LEO is the new SEO. So it's really this idea of optimizing content, not for Google, but for the LLMs. And I think there will be a lot of similarities, because these LLMs, when they are getting trained, they will want to get access to the content very quickly. So performance will stay a thing. They would get the content to be structured. And so everything we've seen with HTML and the metadata, that will still be a thing. So I think there will be a lot of things that will stay similar to what we've built for the past 2 decades, but a lot of things will change as well. And we are here to empower Strapi users to navigate through this journey. At Strapi, we ourselves create a lot of content through AI. We typically use tools like AirOps to create a prompt and use some LLMs to create blog posts, for example, and to push this in Strapi directly. So that's extremely helpful to create content. And I think we'll keep publishing more content about this. And our content editors can produce better content faster, because it adds a lot of value to everyone, to the companies producing the content, but also to people reading this content, because we think that human checks are extremely important, but avoiding having the blank page effect where it takes forever to start a blog post or any other kind of content, AI is a game changer in that. And so it's really your assistant, and I think the sum will be positive.
This is a key element, and I'm glad you touched this, because it's one of my passions. Because the challenge right now with the increasing growth of AI agents, we're going to have websites, humans, and AI agents somehow interacting with each other. And as well, the challenge is a lot of these AI agents might be replicating themselves and creating other AI agents. So it's going to be an interesting part. So looking at this, and as well the challenge that come with cybersecurity around this, and for instance, one of the biggest challenges, deep fakes and a lot of different things, and integration, for instance, one of the things I've been facing myself, even in some of our websites, is people faking our websites and integrating in different parts. So there's a big element of cybersecurity, both in terms of somehow faking personalities of people, but as well faking websites. So one of the things is about what are the challenges that you see from your own community, from your own teams, and as well how you see this challenge when it comes to related with the global challenges and opportunities that comes with this, but as well in terms of cybersecurity and geolocations.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the list is long, so it's hard to cover all of these topics. But it's true that cloning a website is easier than ever, and so people doing phishing probably have a good time cloning a website and sending emails with the same design as famous company designs, and they get credentials from people. That's really bad. And even if it's less related to web development, I think faking identities through voice or even video avatars, that's becoming also very easy. And so in a way, it's something that we've had for years. Like in Photoshop, for example, you could do a fake image of anyone. But the thing is that it's becoming harder and harder. So, well, I wish humanity had only good intention. Unfortunately, that's not really the case. So yeah, I think we all have to be even more careful than we've all been during the past years.
So are you doing specific any areas on cybersecurity for developer community of Strapi, and any particular work that you're doing on that direction as an open source community?
So we do a lot of internal trainings. And when it comes to the Strapi community, we have a big multi program. So hopefully AI will help us finding the security breaches before there's any serious concern. So that's we try to be careful with this.
Thank you. So I know that I'm getting to the end of the interview. So what's next for Strapi? So anything you want to highlight in terms of, we touched some of the features, but as well any new partnerships, features, or strategical directions that you are going to highlight for the next upcoming year, or whatever you can share with our audience. But as well, what's your vision to make Strapi bigger? If you are focused more on growing the community, growing the number of websites, a bit of your vision as well.
Yeah, so we have 4 pillars for the upcoming quarters, and these pillars are exactly the ones I've shared at StrapiConf. The first one is to unify the front end and the CMS. Even if the headless approach is great for many reasons, it added a bit of complexity, and we are simplifying the integration between the front end and the CMS to make the overall experience easier. The second pillar is to grow the community and the ecosystem. As mentioned before, we truly believe in the importance of having more plugins, more partners, and making everyone benefit from the ecosystem. So that's the second pillar. The third one is to make the overall experience easier and more affordable. That's one of the reasons why at StrapiConf we announced the Strapi Cloud free plan, which means from now on you can host any Strapi project for free, with some limitations, of course. But that's something that's feasible because we want to build a very large community. And the last pillar, which is really at the center of all of the others, is AI. We really want to embrace this unique opportunity and to infuse AI everywhere it makes sense.
No, very interesting. So I have, on the AI side, I have a lot of passion for integrating AI agents with a face. Are you thinking about especially integrating some kind of physical AI and sensors that can integrate? Because one of the things that I feel a lot of these AI agents, if they have a face, it will be more difficult to, especially to get, I would say, well, you can always fake an identity on AI agents, but you can create more human intentions between the different AIs. And as well, I think we're going to see big progress between the way the internet is going to interact with, especially VR, AR, especially the new glasses coming both from Snap and Meta, and as well, I think Google and and Apple will come on that. So is there anything on this part of spatial computing that you guys are doing, integrating your CMS with some of these things?
Yeah, so Strapi is headless, so you can use it with basically any of these technologies. But I truly think that, yeah, the way we're going to interact with computers, or more generally speaking, with machines, because I think the idea of computers will really change over the next years. It already changed with phones, with smartphones, of course, but I think the way we're going to interact with machines in general is going to drastically change over the years. Voice is going to be a big thing. Avatars, interacting, just chatting with machines, as we already do in ChatGPT, and saying thank you. Yeah, we are times and we're saying thank you to the machine, but that's already happening, and I think it's going to really continue this way in an exponential manner. And I think hardware and robotics in general is also going to play a significant role in this. You mentioned hardware like VR, and I think augmented reality is also going to be a big thing, because Google Glasses were like 15 years in advance. But imagine you're walking in the streets and there is a specific building, your glasses will show more information about it. And now we have the LLMs for that. We have all of the tools, and that was not a thing 15 years ago. So I think we will see a lot of changes that none of us can even anticipate at the moment.
Yeah, I agree completely. So one of the last questions. So on your solutions, you have three verticals that are quite diverse and actually quite interesting. So especially you have financial service. You have major global financial service using Strapi. And
Yes.
then you have tech and business services, which is B2B content and all the areas. And then you have telco, media, and gaming. Do you want to highlight on these three segments a bit of case studies? I think it's quite interesting, especially telco, media, and gaming, of course, is a much broader audience, but financial services is quite something that probably we would not see in open source. So it's quite interesting just for our users to look at this.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things that financial services really like about Strapi is the data privacy, because they can host their CMS on their own servers. And in terms of use case, one that is pretty exciting, and that's for a bank that based in the US, they manage content on their ATMs. So if you want to get some cash, you would probably see a message on the ATM. It can be the welcome message, it can be whatever. And thanks to their Strapi instance, they can update the content in all of their ATMs in the country, thanks to one click. And so that speaks a lot on the importance of data privacy. So that's for the banks. Another bank is doing an internal learning management system. And it's private information because it's for their employees. It's not for their public website. It's not information that anybody should be able to see. And because they can host Strapi on their own servers, that's also something we can do. At the opposite, there's a lot of much smaller companies that are not necessarily concerned about data privacy. And so they use Strapi Cloud because they benefit from speed when it comes to development and going in production. So it's quite a variety of different companies, but in a way, it also means that we can serve all of them. And that's why we're super excited about the future.
That's very interesting. So Strapi is going to be 10 years in 2025, actually in October. So 10 years is quite a fantastic journey. So any highlights from the community in these 10 years that you want, our community product and highlights that you want to do on this celebration? That I don't know if you're going to do a special celebration in October, but it's your 10-year anniversary. I'm just reminding you.
Yeah, well, thank you. So StrapiConf in person was already a bit of a celebration of this past 10 years, but there would be more during the second half of this year. And it all starts with the community, celebrating everything we've done together. I will also share massive improvements in terms of product in the upcoming months. So stay tuned. And none of this would have been possible without the community and without the Strapi team. So I'm extremely grateful for all of the people on the team. They all have done an amazing job during the past 10 years. And they are going to be essential for what's next at Strapi. So very excited.
Oh, thank you so much. So probably the last one is for a bit of advice for young open source founders. I think especially and developers. But I think now you mentioned a lot of AI, and I think a lot of young developers and personalities coming or young people coming from university are struggling to find their way, especially in this kind of new kind of roles that are being developed as we speak. So any advice, so 3 pieces of advice for young developers, open source founders, and people just listening to us?
Yeah, sure. So there are really 2 components. The first one is really the adoption of open source software, and then the monetization. And those are 2 very different challenges. So for the first one, just building an open source project and getting your users and scaling the community. Well, I think you have to be absolutely passionate about what you do and what problem you're solving. If you're building open source software, it's probably for a reason. It's because you never found the tool that you were dreaming for. So congrats on launching your product. It's fantastic. I'm sure you've worked on this for many, many months, and now it's time to publish it on GitHub and just go on forums, spread the word, ask for feedback. That's, I think, the beauty of open source software, that people are really caring and they will share transparent, honest, candid feedback. And that would be very valuable for iterating, really understanding that there is a need for that and that this need was not only yours. And then you want to build a community, start getting the contributions in terms of code, but also in terms of promotion. So keep chatting with this community, spend time on Discord or Slack, no matter what you use, but also on GitHub, of course, if you use this platform to host your project. And then when it comes to monetizing the project, there are a few business models for making money around an open source project. I think the main one is open core, which means you have an extension of the open source project. It can be through an enterprise edition, it can be through paid plugins. And no matter what it is, it's a good opportunity to sell extra features to the users of the existing open source project. And this means that these features can be self-hosted. So do anticipate that enterprises would probably like these additional features, and that, yeah, you will just have pretty quickly big enterprises that will ask you for more, which is exciting, but do also make sure that you do not derail from your existing roadmap, because it can be a trap and you can forget your community in the journey. The second business model is hosting. It really depends on what kind of software you have. It can be infrastructure software like a database, for example, there is no user interface, or it can be application software like a CRM, a CMS, or a CRM, or any other kind of tool where there is a user interface. In one case or the other, users will need to host the platform. And so you might offer your application software as a service, or your infrastructure software as a service. Think about GitLab on gitlab.com, what we do with Strapi Cloud, or with MongoDB Atlas, for example, which is a managed version of MongoDB. That's a really good business model, because 100% of projects need to go in production at some point if they are serious projects, and people are used to pay for hosting, so they will more likely go for your solution, except if you target very enterprise customers like banks and healthcare companies that really care about self-hosting. But that's not necessarily where you should start, except if you're in cybersecurity or this kind of verticals, because these companies are big logos, but they're also difficult to work with in the early days. So I would recommend hosting. I gave a talk at the Open Core Summit in December 2023. There is a video on YouTube. So if you want more information about this, feel free to take a look at this video. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Pierre. I have a couple more, but this take one. So congratulations is great, and I love the way you approach all these different things. And for people listening to us, I think we'll put all the links that you mentioned, Pierre, and as well to the Strapi platform where we have all the different things. So, well, it's a wild ride, and I think you guys just started. So wishing you next 10 years of amazing success. and a lot of innovation. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor.
Awesome. Thank you, Dinis, for having me today.